Is that Martin Luther King was shot and was killed tonight in Memphis, Tennessee.
The FBI successfully depicted you, Mr. Ray, as a politically motivated racist. Why do you think this is a false statement?
Well, what they did to perpetuate that story is they embellished on various statements witnesses made. For instance, in Canada, I'd met a lady up there just briefly, and the FBI, said I told her that I made disparaging remarks about the Reverend Martin Luther King, and subsequently I got a real statement in the Freedom of Information Act, and the Canadian Mounted Police, the Canadian Mounted Police interviewed her, and she said I didn't say anything about King or blacks in general. But there's three instances like that, and they use that to.
When it comes to your political background, I understand you have never voted in your entire life. Is that true?
No, I've never voted or registered, although we can register here in the penitentiary, but I've never registered.
You have never been a part of any political hate group, racial hate group like the Klan?
Well, I've never been any part of any political group, period, whether it's the whites or blacks or, Klan or whatever. What they did, the prosecution got control of my attorney, and then finally, through coercion and threats against family members and all that, I agreed to enter a plea, and the plea was typed up by the prosecuting attorney, and I had admitted to certain allegations.
Did you kill Martin Luther King?
No, I've denied that about 1,000 times. Of course, it really doesn't make any difference what I say or what the attorney general says. I think what you have to do is to look to see what these the witnesses don't have no vested interest in the case has to say, and also what the documents say.
The House Select Committee on Assassinations concluded that there was a conspiracy. After a 2-year investigation, they reported that you did indeed shoot Dr. King, but that St. Louis-based bigots were behind the killing. The committee also concluded that no federal, state, or local agency was involved, exonerating the FBI. How do you respond to that?
Well, some committee members have changed their position now, although it hasn't been in the media. Congressman Walter Fontroy, and he was the chairman of the subcommittee that investigated the Martin Luther King case, said he no longer believes that I was responsible for the Martin Luther King homicide, and he also called upon the Congress to declassify all the records in the case, all their records. Now, when the committee concluded, the chairman of the committee, Congressman Lewis Stokes, classified 185 cubic feet of records. Now, Fontroy, he wants to declassify those records. So, what the point I'm trying to make is some of the committee members are, changing their.
Mr. Ray, why weren't any ballistic tests ever done on the fatal bullet or the murder weapon?
Well, I really don't know. I think they claim they can't do them as some type of sophisticated slug use, and they can't run no tests on them. But there's other outside agencies have tried to. CBS Television attempted to run a ballistic on 1975, but the Tennessee courts wouldn't permit it. So there's never been no outside evaluation of the whether it's possible or not to run an examination on the slug.
I'm here in Birmingham, Alabama, and in 1968, James Earl Ray walked into Aero Marine Supply at 5701 Airport Highway to purchase the .30-06 he used to assassinate MLK. As you can see, the building is long gone. It's been replaced by Interstate 59, but it was right here.
In your book, you say evidence was tampered with by the government. What was tampered with?
What I was referring to is these FBI documents where they'd interview witnesses, and after they interviewed the witnesses, they'd add on to it about me making various racist-oriented statements to the witness. That happened about 3 or 4 times. It happened once in California, once in Canada, and another party in Mexico.
Reverend Jesse Jackson isn't sure that you're the killer and endorses your call for a federal special prosecutor and the unsealing of committee investigative records that are closed to the public until 2029. Why are those files sealed?
Well, I assume they're sealed to protect the government's case. But in respect to these files, in 1989, I got the entire Memphis prosecution files released under a lawsuit I filed under Tennessee, what they call the Sunshine Law. And this is a large volume, and it was now the federals, they haven't released any of their files. The Justice Department, they have a voluminous file, and of course the Congressional Committee has a large file, and then a judge named John Lewis Smith in Washington D.C. he classified 58 cubic feet of files on his own. Now, it's our belief that if these files were all released, the new Attorney General, I think her name is Janet Reno, if she'd release all these files, just cart them out there and just give them the news media, this case would be resolved within 30 days because the files would either support my testimony or they would support the the prosecution's testimony.
Will you ever get your day in court?
Well, it's going to be extremely difficult because they went to so much trouble, to get me in the penitentiary without trial. Everybody wanted to. No one wanted a trial except me. The Judge Battle, the trial judge, told the New York Times in an interview which was published in March the 16th and 17th that he was afraid I was going to be acquitted, and the governor of Tennessee, he didn't want no trial. He said he thought a guilty plea would be an excellent idea. He told this to the prosecutor. Now the prosecutor, he told 1988, he told Associated Press on April 3rd that he was also concerned that I would get a hung jury. So it's going to be extremely difficult for me to get a trial. I think that if things get to the point where they have to do something, well, I think they'd give me a commutation or something like that. I don't think they'd ever give me a trial because if I got a trial, I could subpoena all these classified records. Like I said, we've reached the point now where this case could be resolved by the new Attorney General if she wants to resolve it.
Have you talked with her?
Well, no. Have I talked to her?
Yeah.
No, I'm sure she's not going to talk to me. But she'd have to talk to a lawyer. What would have to take place in the news media? The news media has never talked. I'm talking about the large, like the New York Times and 3 television networks. They're the only ones who could get them released because up until now they won't even talk about these classified files.
Mr. Ray, many who have interviewed you, including those that even think you're innocent, have the sense that you're hiding some of what you know. Harold Weisberg, does that name sound familiar?
Yes.
A writer and former congressional investigator said he once asked you while he was helping you for a hearing who your handlers were, and you responded, "I won't get out by putting somebody else in."
Yeah, well, I think that's up until recently they've been going on the lone nut theory. Now I think now they're going to contend that that I'm concealing someone, but that's really kind of ridiculous, I think, because at first the government, the FBI and the Congressional Committee and all these other federal agencies, they spent millions of dollars on this case, investigating it. Now here they're going to come back and contend that the only person to resolve it is me and the criminal defendant here. I'm in the penitentiary. I'm supposed to resolve the case. The only thing I've ever said about this matter is that I wouldn't be a prosecution witness. I would testify for myself. But if I testify for myself, the prosecutor can ask me any question he wants to because I would have to answer it unless I wanted to. I couldn't take the Fifth Amendment because obviously if I did, well then I would.
Now let me be point blank here. Were you involved in the conspiracy? You just weren't the trigger man.
I may have been involved in it, but unknowingly. I thought we was selling guns or something of that nature, something less serious than murder. I didn't knowingly get involved in any murder.
You were involved indirectly. You just didn't know about it.
No, I thought we was going to commit a crime, but I didn't think it was that type of crime. No, I didn't have anything to do with it.
Who did?
But that's what we're trying to find out. That's not really my responsibility to try to solve the case. But I have tried to resolve it. Resolve the case by getting all these documents released and cooperating with the investigating agents.